can money ever buy happiness? If you ask society, the answer is yes. If you ask Aristotle, the answer is this. You are asking the wrong question. Picture this. A billionaire sits alone in his mansion. The walls are covered in art worth millions. His garage is filled with cars that most people only dream of. Yet in the silence of his home, he feels empty. The money is there, the happiness is not. Now picture something else. A man who makes just enough to cover his bills. He lives in a modest house, drives an old car, and counts every dollar. Yet when he comes home, his children run into his arms. The table is simple, but the laughter is loud. The money is limited, but in that moment, there is joy. Two pictures, two lives, one rich, one modest. And still the answer to our question slips away. If money buys happiness, why do the wealthy often suffer in silence? If money cannot buy happiness, why do so many people chase it as if it were the only path to joy? The problem is not in the answers we have been given. The problem is in the question itself. We have been trained to ask whether money can buy happiness, as if happiness were a product on a shelf and money the ticket to claim it. But happiness does not work like that. And Aristotle knew it more than 2,000 years ago. This is the hook. You have been taught to chase something that was never meant to be caught. And in that chase, you have been led away from what actually matters. The real issue is not whether money can buy happiness. The real issue is how you use money and whether it serves the purpose of your life or steals it away. Before we can go deeper, we need to face this uncomfortable truth. If you are still asking whether money can buy happiness, you have already lost sight of the real path. And if you stay with me, we are going to uncover why. If you want to understand why so many people still cling to the belief that money equals happiness, you do not have to look far. Just turn on a television. Scroll through your phone. Walk through a shopping mall. You are surrounded by one of the most powerful forces in modern history: advertising. Every commercial, every billboard, every influencer post whispers the same message. Buy this and you will smile like the people in the picture. Own this and you will finally feel worthy. Upgrade and you will belong. The car is not just transportation, it is status. The house is not just shelter, it is proof of success. The vacation is not just rest, it is the life everyone else wishes they had. From childhood, we are told the same story again and again until it becomes invisible. That story is simple. Money brings freedom, money brings security, and most of all, money brings happiness. The story is repeated so often that few people ever stop to question it. It becomes part of the air we breathe. Psychologists have a name for what happens next. They call it the hedonic treadmill. Imagine running as hard as you can. But no matter how fast your legs move, you never get closer to the finish line. That is what chasing happiness through money feels like. You buy the new car, and for a few weeks, you are thrilled. You park it at the front of the driveway. You admire the shine. You inhale the new leather. For a short time, it feels like life has changed. But soon, the car becomes just a car. A tool to get you from one place to another. The excitement fades and the hunger creeps back in. Or you land the promotion you fought for. At first, you feel unstoppable. Your family is proud. Your friends congratulate you. You celebrate with champagne. But within months, the glow wears off. The new title is just a line on a business card. The salary bump is swallowed by new expenses, and you are already eyeing the next step up the ladder. This pattern is not rare. It is not unusual. It is universal. The lottery winner who returns to his old level of happiness after a year. The family who dreams of the perfect home, only to discover that once they move in, it becomes nothing more than a place to sleep. The student who believes life will begin after graduation, only to arrive and feel the same emptiness. We keep running, we keep chasing, another job, another house, another number in the bank account, And every time, the feeling slips through our fingers. Here is the point that stings. It is not just that society tells us money equals happiness. It is that the entire system depends on us believing it. If people ever became truly satisfied, if they ever stopped chasing, entire industries would collapse. So the treadmill is not an accident. It is the design. Look closely and you will see it. The ads do not sell products, they sell dissatisfaction. They remind you of what you do not have. They stir the restlessness that never goes away. They magnify the voice inside that whispers, "Not enough, not yet." And here is where the trap becomes dangerous, because dissatisfaction in itself is not the enemy. As Aristotle once saw, dissatisfaction can be a signal, pointing us toward growth. But when that dissatisfaction is hijacked, when it is turned into fuel for consumption instead of creation, it becomes a prison. A prison with golden bars. This is why you feel the rush when you buy, followed by the emptiness that comes after. This is why you cannot shake the thought that just a little more money will finally solve it. The treadmill is working exactly as designed. Now, pause here. If this is the illusion, then what is the truth? If the story that money equals happiness is false, then what is the right story? To answer that, we need to return to the concept that has guided this channel again and again. A concept Aristotle believed was the key to every human life. Telos. If this is your first time with ThinkMate, let me pause here, because there is a concept at the center of Aristotle's philosophy that you need to know. Without it, the rest of this video will not make sense. He called it telos. You can follow the telos series in our previous Aristotle videos on ThinkMate to understand this concept more deeply. Telos means purpose, not the goals you are told to chase, but the inner direction that makes a life whole. The telos of a seed is to grow into a tree. The telos of a human being is to become what he or she was meant to be. For some, that means teaching and awakening young minds. For others, it is healing the sick, creating art that outlives them, or standing for justice even when it costs everything. History remembers Florence Nightingale, Nelson Mandela, and Beethoven not for what they owned, but because they lived their telos. Aristotle believed that human beings are not here just to survive, or to chase pleasure, or to collect trophies. Our telos is to use reason, to cultivate virtue, and to grow into the fullest version of ourselves. That state of becoming is what he called eudaimonia. Many translate it as happiness, but a more honest translation is flourishing. Think about it in everyday life. The telos of a chair is to be sat on. The telos of a watch is to tell time. The telos of a lamp is to give light. When these things fail to do their job, no amount of polish or decoration can make them complete. In the same way, if a person fails to live according to his telos, no amount of money or recognition can make his life whole. Why does this matter in a conversation about money? Because when you mistake money for your telos, you confuse the means with the end. You start to live as if the point of life were to accumulate, when in truth, accumulation is only a tool. Money can buy time, education, and opportunity, but it cannot tell you who you are. It cannot define what you are for. This is why so many people end their lives feeling restless. They ran hard, but they ran on the wrong track. They built accounts full of dollars, but never asked the deeper question, what is this money supposed to serve? So before we go further, hold this thought. Money may be a powerful servant, but it is a terrible master. It can help you move faster toward your purpose, but it cannot replace the purpose itself. That, Aristotle would say, is telos. Now let us test this against reality. What happens when we look at the evidence of how money actually affects our lives? Does it bring us closer to flourishing, or does it leave us stuck in the same cycle we thought we had escaped? So now that we understand telos, let us return to the question, can money ever buy happiness? What does the evidence tell us? For years, psychologists have studied the relationship between income and well-being. Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, two Nobel Prize-winning researchers, discovered something remarkable. They found that in the United States, emotional well-being rises with income up to around $75,000 a year. That is enough to cover basic needs, to pay the bills, to reduce the stress of daily survival. But beyond that point, more money does not guarantee more happiness. Think about that for a moment. A person making $75,000 and a person making $300,000 often report the same level of daily happiness. Comfort increases, yes. Options expand, yes. But the inner experience of life does not change as much as you would expect. Other studies paint the same picture. Gallup polls show that some of the wealthiest countries in the world also struggle with the highest levels of depression and anxiety. America, despite being one of the richest nations in history, faces rising rates of loneliness, addiction, and despair. The data tell a sobering story. Wealth may protect you from hunger and homelessness, but it cannot protect you from emptiness. And yet, countless people dedicate their entire lives to accumulation. They work endless hours. They sacrifice relationships. They tell themselves that once they reach a certain number in the bank, they will finally start living. But the cruel truth is this: many die before that day comes. They built their fortune but never used it to pursue their telos. They mastered the art of making a living but never discovered the art of living itself. Consider the image. A man sits at his desk late at night. He has missed his daughter's recital. He has not spoken to his wife in days. His body aches from stress, but on the screen, the numbers rise. His investments grow. He tells himself just a little more, just a little longer. One day this will all be worth it. But when that day finally comes, he discovers the truth. The years are gone. The family is distant. The money is there, but the life he wanted to live is not. This is the tragedy Aristotle would warn us against: to confuse the tool for the end, to believe that money itself is the purpose, when in reality it is only a resource. Comfort is valuable, security is valuable, but comfort is not meaning. Security is not flourishing. At best, money can supply the fuel that allows you to move forward, but it can never decide the direction. It can never walk the journey for you. And so we arrive at the deeper question: if money cannot give us telos, what is its true role? How should it be used? And how do we prevent it from using us? For answers, we turn back to Aristotle. Aristotle never said that money is evil. He was not naive. He understood that without resources, a person can be trapped in struggle, unable to focus on anything higher than survival. But he also knew this: money is always instrumental. It is never final. It is a tool, not a telos. At the center of his philosophy is the idea of eudaimonia. We mentioned this word before. It is often translated as happiness, but that translation is weak. Eudaimonia is not a fleeting feeling. It is not the smile you wear when you get a bonus or the thrill when you buy something new. Eudaimonia is flourishing. It is the fulfillment that comes from living in harmony with your nature, from becoming the person you were meant to be. Here is the danger. If you mistake pleasure for flourishing, you will spend your life chasing the wrong thing. Pleasure is temporary. Flourishing is permanent. Pleasure depends on circumstances. Flourishing depends on character. Pleasure can be bought. Flourishing must be lived. So what role does money play? Aristotle would say that money is an external good, useful, sometimes necessary, but never sufficient. It can remove obstacles. It can provide time, freedom, and opportunity, but it cannot give you wisdom. It cannot give you courage. It cannot give you integrity. Those belong to the realm of virtue, and virtue cannot be purchased. Think of Socrates. He lived in poverty, yet his pursuit of truth shaped the entire course of Western thought. His telos was not wealth, but wisdom. Think of Diogenes, who owned almost nothing, but lived in radical freedom, exposing the pretenses of society. His telos was not accumulation but authenticity. Think of Mother Teresa. With no riches to her name, she built a life of service that touched millions. Her telos was compassion. None of these lives depended on money to find meaning. They depended on aligning with a purpose beyond money. This is the pattern Aristotle invites us to see. Money may support your journey, but it cannot tell you where to go. If you chase it for its own sake, you become its prisoner. If you use it for the sake of telos, it becomes your servant. The same dollar can either chain you to a treadmill of endless desire or free you to cultivate the life you were meant to live. And this is why Aristotle would challenge the way our culture frames success. We measure status by salary, by square footage, by the size of the portfolio. But none of these prove that a person has lived well. A man with millions may still be a coward. A woman with fame may still feel empty. Without virtue, without telos, wealth is hollow. So ask yourself, what is the money in your life serving? Is it building the conditions for you to flourish? Or is it distracting you from the very reason you exist? Because in the end, money can purchase many things, but it cannot purchase the one thing that matters most, a life lived in alignment with its telos. Aristotle warned us about confusing tools with ends. But even if you know this in theory, living it in practice is far harder. Why? Because almost everything around you is designed to pull you off your telos. And the force that pulls the hardest is the crowd. From the moment you are a child, the crowd begins to whisper in your ear. Your classmates laugh at the cheap shoes. The commercials show families beaming with joy because they bought the latest gadget. Your neighbors measure success by the size of the house, the model of the car, the number of vacations each year. The message is not subtle. To be worthy, you must keep up. To be respected, you must accumulate. Psychologists call this social comparison. You do not measure yourself by who you are, but by how you stack up against the people next to you. If your friend makes more, you feel behind. If your colleague drives better, you feel inadequate. Even if you were content a moment ago, the presence of the crowd stirs restlessness. Advertising exploits this weakness with surgical precision. The point of a commercial is not to sell you a product. It is to sell you dissatisfaction. The crowd reminds you of what you lack. The ad tells you how to fill the gap. Together they trap you in a loop. First comes the spark of envy. Then comes the promise of relief. Then comes the purchase. Then comes the emptiness. And the cycle begins again. But there is another layer, more dangerous than envy. Culture itself programs us to worship wealth. In school, you are told to work hard so you can get a good job, so you can earn good money, so you can retire with comfort. Success is defined almost exclusively in financial terms. A big salary, a big house, a big account. Rarely does anyone ask, what is your telos? They ask instead, what is your title? How much do you make? This is why so many people live lives that are not their own. They inherit the telos of the crowd without realizing it. They chase the goals handed to them by advertising, by peers, by culture. They think they are choosing freely, but in truth, they are being carried by the current. Picture the tragedy. A man works tirelessly, building wealth for decades. He buys the right house, drives the right car, wears the right clothes. The crowd applauds. He is the model of success. But when he sits alone at night, he feels nothing but emptiness. He was rich in possessions, but poor in purpose. As some have put it, he was rich in his wallet, but bankrupt in his soul. Or picture the young professional who spends every paycheck chasing trends. The clothes change, the gadgets change, the vacations change. She looks perfect on social media, but the image hides the truth. She has no idea who she is, no sense of why she is here. Her life is not guided by telos. but by the shifting winds of the crowd. This is the tragedy Aristotle would recognize. Not simply that people confuse money with happiness, but that entire societies train us to do so. The tragedy is systemic. It is cultural. And unless you step back, unless you reclaim the question for yourself, you will end up living a life that was never really yours. Which brings us to the turning point. If the crowd has been asking the wrong question all along, then what is the right one? If money cannot buy happiness, then what should we be asking instead? So if the crowd has been asking the wrong question all along, what is the right one? Not, can money buy happiness? That question keeps you trapped in the illusion. The real question is this: what should money be used for? Aristotle would remind us that money is never the telos. It is never the final end. It is only a means. The purpose of money is not to be worshipped, but to be directed, and the direction must always serve your flourishing. Used wisely, money can free you from meaningless labor so that your time is spent on what matters. It can open doors to learning, to reflection, to the cultivation of your mind. It can create the conditions for virtue, for relationships, for works that outlast you. In short, money is the fuel. Telos is the destination. Think of it like a lamp. The telos of the lamp is to shine. The wick is its virtue, the quality that makes it burn steadily. Money is only the oil, the resource that keeps the flame alive. And happiness, the light itself, is not something you buy. It is the natural glow that appears when the lamp is fulfilling its purpose. But here is the part we often forget. Happiness is not the destination. It is a gift that may appear along the way. You cannot grasp it directly because the more you chase it, the further it runs. What you can do is walk in line with your telos. Sometimes happiness will be there, sometimes it will not. And both are part of the journey. Because without hunger, there is no real appreciation of food. Without hardship, there is no true relief. Without the desert, the cactus cannot bloom. Suffering and joy define each other. Happiness gains its meaning only because pain exists beside it. So do not make happiness your target, make flourishing your target. If you spend your life chasing happiness, you may end empty-handed. But if you spend your life pursuing telos, happiness will find you. Not as a product bought with money, but as a flower that blooms naturally along the road. So here is the challenge. This week, look at how you are using money. Are you spending it to imitate the crowd, to buy another mask you do not need? Or are you using it to clear the way for your telos, to grow into the person you were meant to be? Do not let the world define happiness for you. Do not let advertising tell you what to want. Happiness is not the prize. It is the byproduct. It is the gift that appears when you live in alignment with your purpose. So do not chase happiness. Chase telos. Build the life that only you can live. And when happiness comes, it will come as it always should. Not as something bought, but as something earned by becoming who you truly are. If this message speaks to you, subscribe to ThinkMate, because this is where we expose the illusions of modern life and rediscover the wisdom that still matters today.